My friendy eye, and welcome back to my channel. My name is CaitlinAnwyn for anyone who's new here, and let's get back into building in Planet Zoo. And today I'm going to be doing a habitat for the African penguins. I wanted to do something inspired by the Netflix documentary Penguin Town. I really enjoyed learning more about African penguins through that documentary, so I wanted to build something that was sort of inspired by some of the things that I saw in the documentary. And the penguins spend quite a lot of their time in the water, and by the water, like on the beach. But we're not going to be doing the beach part for this video because I spent way too long building this. I had an idea for these African penguins since I watched that documentary, and I watched that documentary just before the pack was released. So I've sort of had an image in my mind that I wanted to make my own little penguin town. So I ended up getting way too carried away building it and spent way too long on it. So I've ended up deciding to just split this video into two. One for the penguin town, which we're going to be doing today. And then on Saturday we're going to be doing the penguin beach side of the habitat. So we're kind of going to split it into two. And I was having a look at something to do for like the town part of this, and I was having a look at the architecture that is in Simonstown, where the Penguin Town documentary was set. The town itself is super colourful, and I really liked how the buildings looked. They didn't have like the style of some of the new building pieces that we got with the pack. But I liked like the mix of it, and I thought I could find some pieces that are already in Planet Zoo. The classic style has quite a lot of pieces that I liked for the buildings, but I literally spent so much time just going through all of the objects trying to find something that would fit nicely for these buildings. And I didn't want to make them too big because the African penguins are actually quite small. Even in the documentary you can see how tiny they are. So I knew like the buildings would be like really big for them, but that will give it a good amount of habitat shelter. I just picked two buildings out of however many on the street in Simonstown there was. I just picked two because one was like super colourful, it was blue. I've had a little break from my wacky builds, and I wanted a little bit more of a bright and colourful, cheerful build for this one. And I like the shape of the other one. I just wanted a little bit of a variation and to make the two buildings definitely look different. I don't necessarily need it to be super realistic. I just want it to be fun and colourful and just inspired by those buildings instead of them being exactly the same. I just finished watching Glow Up, which is a makeup competition on BBC Three. So I'm not sure whether it's actually aired in America or anything. But if you're from the UK, you might know the programme. And I was a little bit more adventurous with my makeup today because I've been watching lots of really cool makeup. I'm not really one for like super extravagant makeup. I tend to just put makeup on to make myself look more awake. But I seen this non-binary contestant match their eyeshadow to their hair. They had like really vivid bright green hair, and I was super inspired by that. I thought it looked really, really cool, so I wanted to try that out myself and match my eyeshadow to my hair. And you know I love purple anyway, so I'm a little bit like, oh wow. I don't wear makeup all that often. I tend to only really put it on to make videos. So it's fun to kind of go out your comfort zone a little bit sometimes and play around with some things. That's why I've been trying to make more natural habitats as well, like the safari habitat. which I'm going to take a little break from this week because we did like the safari ride and the watering hole last week. I'm going to take a little break and we'll just do African penguins for this week. Plus, I spent too much time doing this. I didn't have time to build anything else. But even though I was trying to duplicate these buildings from Simonstown, I still wanted to kind of tie in the color scheme for the whole zoo as well. I still wanted it to fit in a little bit with the general color scheme of the whole zoo, so it didn't really stick out too much. So that lighter color, the like creamy white of the lighter building, is the same shade that I used for the entrance part and the safari ride buildings. You can get so creative with some of the building shapes with Planet Zoo, and this piece from the classic style suited the building. It wasn't exactly right. I don't think I'll ever get anything perfectly right, but it looked really nice. The roof pieces were just perfect. That was like my favorite part of this, was trying to like play around with the roof and make it look a different shape to just like the regular roofing. This took me like 4-ish hours to finish just the building itself, and usually that's roughly how long it would take me to build a whole habitat. So that's why I've split it up as well, because this just took me so long, because I got really into doing all of the detail work, like trying to get this roof to look really cool, and I wasn't really sure how to create this like rounded bumpy roof part that was on one of the buildings, so I just used these columns and rotated them. Instead of having them like vertical, I wanted them horizontal to give that bumpy roof texture, and I was just trying to add in extra little details so it wasn't looking unfinished. I wanted it to look like a proper building, and that obviously is gonna take me a little extra time to decorate instead of just whacking it all on. What was really funny was I actually showed my mum like a work in progress part of this building. Sometimes she'll pop upstairs in the many hours that I spend holed up in here building. She'll pop up and I'll show her what I've been working on, but she actually thought that this was a blueprint. I'm not sure whether that's supposed to be a compliment. I'm gonna take it as one, because the blueprints always look fully detailed. It's not like, I'm gonna drag EA now. It's not like the pre-built houses that EA gives you on The Sims. Most blueprints that you'll get from Planet Zoo are like super detailed, so I'm definitely going to take that as a compliment, that my mom actually thought that this was a blueprint when I showed her, that I just like decorated it a little bit to match in with my habitat. But I was like, no, this took me 4 hours to build. I wish this was just a place down object, but no. And then I took to trying to make these two buildings look slightly different to each other, instead of them looking like terraced houses, like a town centre, high street kind of building. And not all shops look exactly the same, even though they're built on like one high street. I know the high street that's near me, the shops aren't the same, so I wanted to give it a little bit of a variation. So I pulled back one of the walls on the lighter coloured building, and I also wanted to put different windows up the top, because maybe these top windows realistically could be where people live, like the flat above a shop. So I wanted the windows to be slightly different as well, and I really love these doors. I think they're from the South America pack, so I apologise for that if you don't have the South America pack, but these doors were so pretty, and the pattern on them matched some of the like the floral leafy patterns of the top of the columns. I like the plates, and I want to include the plates because they come with the pack, and it's just like a pretty display. It gives it a little bit more interest to that bottom part of the building as well. And then I was looking at the Planet Zoo blueprint for the shops from the Africa pack, and they had some of the Indian style clutter items in the center. So they had like these lovely draped fabrics and like the folded up fabrics and the rolled up fabrics. So I was like playing around with that a little bit. The draped fabrics were slightly too wide for my little balcony, but I also wanted to have something hanging from like the balcony area, kind of like how you would think of like a seaside shop, like where you get your bucket and spade to make sandcastles. Most of the time, like if I think of somewhere like Barry Island or maybe Tenby. Tenby's such a beautiful beach. If you ever visit Wales, go to Tenby. Don't really go to Barry Island and places like that. I know I mention it a lot, but that is not the nicest beach in Wales. But I was trying to think of like shops that would be by a beach, and I'm not sure what it would be like in a place like Africa, but here we have like inflatables, scented balls on rubber springs that you can like bounce, and they're all like hanging on the outside of the shop, like as an advertisement. They all sway, maybe some wind chimes, souvenirs, basically like a souvenir shop. So I did actually want to hang things outside one of the stores to give it a little bit more detail and to tie it in a little bit with the 4x4 adventure safari transport ride station buildings, because I had a little bit of this rope and some of these hanging details on one part of that, and I wanted to add a bit more in. And I haven't really mentioned this, but I am planning on making this habitat a walkthrough habitat as well, so I can see the pathway just going across the two buildings there. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I know I've made more of an effort with trying to include my guests into my habitats. Sometimes I just don't care, and it's more of a concept and what I want the habitat to look like than whether my guests can see my animals or not. And then I realised that I'd spent way too much time working on the front of this shops, and guests can actually see the back of this habitat. What am I doing? I've got like the walkthrough part. So I thought, why not give the penguins a little bit more shelter whenever they want it? They will walk through your house and nest in your garden because you protect them as well. I can't believe the audacity of some of these African penguins, because they will just nest in your garden because they're safer there. There was a penguin couple called Lord and Lady Courtyard. Every time they wanted to go fishing to get like food, they would walk through the person's house to get to the beach, and then walk through the person's house to get back to their nest. I couldn't imagine leaving my doors open, like my front and my back door open, to let the penguins go back and forth whenever they felt like it. I couldn't imagine doing that, but I think it's really cool that these people are just like, oh yeah, let them do what they want. And because this was already a walkthrough habitat, why not have the guests sit and relax in this little area? Obviously I had to take off a wall so they could get in. I just thought it would be nice to allow them to maybe rest a little bit and integrate this piece into the habitat itself, instead of it just being a decorative piece to make the back look more interesting than it was, because I had completely neglected it. Why not integrate it a little bit? And I even put a little donation bin in. I know I've already mentioned Lord and Lady Courtyard, the penguin couple that live in this poor person's back garden. They had chicks, and one of their chicks did a little explore as they were getting a little bit bigger and turning into what they call blues, which is the ones that you actually see on the game. They are blues. Well, this poor little penguin chick goes on a little explore, sees something else and gets a little spooked and ends up falling in a fountain. But it's fine in the end. Like, it figures out that it can actually get out. So that's why I wanted to add in a fountain next to these buildings for little baby courtyard. I can't remember what the little ones were called. But yeah, I'm gonna finish it off there for now. Leave me suggestions for the next habitat animal we should do. I want to do more with the river. I'm thinking maybe some hippos. I did have a suggestion on the last video for hippos. I also added in a habitat web camera for inside the building, so we can see some penguins chilling inside the building too. I don't know exactly how these work, but that is what I've got right here too. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, and if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload on Wednesdays and Saturdays around 7 PM. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!